Okay, folks, we are now back with the second episode of interviews for TiEcon Delhi 2023. The recent conversation I had was with Kunal, and it was absolutely amazing. And for some reason, I have a feeling this one is going to be whole another level, right? Today, we are having a conversation with Prajakt Raut. Now, Prajakt, formal introduction, first runs supply chain labs, right? This is a setup that is committed to helping startups in the area of supply chain, right? Grow, excel, get mentoring, investments, etc. The whole thing. And when Prajakt and I were having conversation right now, I mentioned this to him, that my understanding of this domain is very limited, but I understand enough to know that the nation runs on this one thing, one of the most critical aspects of any business moving anything, right, is dependent upon this one domain. And that's so amazing, right? Cool. So that's the business Prajakt is in. He focuses on those businesses that are optimizing and digitizing the supply chain ecosystem. That's his focus area. He's sector agnostic because, like I said, every area of the industry is affected by supply chain. This is the formal introduction. Let's go to the personal.
I just want to add, Paritosh, if it's okay.
Please. Yes, please.
We are an early stage fund. In the sense,
okay.
We work with entrepreneurs at the early stages of their journey. And we typically would invest up to $1 million, or sometimes lead the investment round, or sometimes co-invest with other people in startups that are optimizing or digitizing any aspect of supply chain.
Cool. So I got the sequence wrong. I was first supposed to welcome you, Prajakt, before I went on to your introduction. So let me do that now. Prajakt, welcome to the conversation about TiEcon. Thank you so much for making time. Thank you.
Thank you for having me around, and always a pleasure to be involved with any activity to do with TiE.
Absolutely, yes. I feel the same. Done. Okay. So let's humanize Prajakt. Let's understand his passions, what drives him. Okay. So one thing that I just learned about him, that Prajakt has been the head of Asia office for 3 years, from 2004 to 2006. He actually took a sabbatical to lead the Asia office for TiE. Now, I want to combine this with something else that Prajakt mentioned, that he mentioned he has passion for entrepreneurship, right? A lot of people say those kind of things, that we've got passion for entrepreneurship. Even I say it, okay? But combine this with the fact that he took a sabbatical for 3 years, ran a job that I don't believe Prajakt pays. This is right.
Well, it's at any NGO or a nonprofit.
Yeah,
you can't expect market salaries in any case.
Absolutely. So this itself should be telling you that when Prajakt mentioned that he has passion for entrepreneurship, it wasn't just talk, right? And that's a matter of respect. Okay, cool. He's driven by this idea of helping 100,000 businesses start, 100,000 people, entrepreneurs coming up. Right. And what I loved about when he told me this is, he said it doesn't just have to be around the VC and the funding ecosystem. It could be a mom and pop shop. It could be a tech business, could be anything. As long as it's entrepreneurship, he's in. Okay, cool. We bonded over daughters. Prajakt has a daughter. I have one, right? We discussed some stories, right? That was between us, but let's just make this about you now, those of you who are watching. Prajakt, once again, welcome. Thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you very much.
Lovely. So, Prajakt, one foundation question that I'm going to begin with. Okay, this is for TiEcon Delhi, people who are coming, and our goal is to help them network better, right? What is your philosophy on networking?
When you go to any large gathering, you are bound to meet several people, many of whom will be able to add value to your business in some way or the other. Some may be more experienced in something that you're not aware of. Some may be domain experts in certain things, and they don't necessarily need to be more experienced or senior than you. They could be younger people or people who are not as experienced as you, and they could teach you a thing or two. Now, therefore, my philosophy about attending events is to keep your eyes and ears open and interacting with people with the objective of understanding where there are synergies and where you will be able to leverage each other's experiences. Now, the way to do this is by starting to establish a relationship. In the sense, don't make a transaction. Explain what you do. Explain what your areas of interest are. See if there is a mutual marrying of areas of common interest, etc. and strike a conversation. One of the reasons where people don't get that much value, or they don't perceive that they've got that much value in attending these events, because they try to make it transactional, in the sense, let me go and find people, let me find somebody who will invest in my business or be a customer. Things don't happen like that. Transactions, even if they have to happen, don't happen over one interaction.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to write a check, nobody's going to sign an order for that. What it does, however, it allows you, networking events like TiECon allow you to start a relationship in a non-selling kind of an environment, which is a stronger foundation for building from further on from there onwards than otherwise would have been possible.
Lovely. Lovely. I want to bring the same conversation that you've just had, you've mentioned, Prajakt, from a different perspective. I'm not really an investor. Okay. I do have stake in small companies and a mentor there, but I'm not even on the same planet that you're at. But from where I am, I sense that a lot of companies, startups, end up putting too much weight on the idea. Whereas what I've seen in the investors on your side of the table, I've seen that you guys tend to value people who are behind that idea as much as the idea, right? So who's running that idea, who they are, what they do, what are their belief system, philosophy, commitment, etc., is as important as the product. Is this something that you would agree with, this observation?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in any business, in any early stage business that you're investing in, what you're investing is the potential of that concept, but more importantly, the passion, conviction, and the commitment of the individuals who are behind that, because of which that concept, even if it has potential, will really live up to that potential. But it's not just about saying, hey, therefore ditch the idea and, just talk about yourself.
Absolutely.
Whenever you meet, and say, for example, if you're meeting investor, it is important for you to contextualize what you're proposing to them in a manner that makes it relatable. For example, if it's a extremely easily understandable concept, then don't spend time explaining why that concept is important, and explain how you're doing it, why you're doing it differently, and why you're best qualified to do it. However, if you're introducing a concept which is really complex and not done before, you may, instead of spending time on how you're doing it, you might need to contextualize and help people understand the need and the relevance of that concept itself, so that people get it. I get it. This can be really valuable. And then go on to understanding, or then go on to explaining how you're doing it. And most importantly, summarize by explaining why you're best qualified to do this, or why you have a reasonable chance of being a successful player in that space. Paritosh, founders also have to remember that while an investor is giving money to the founder, a founder or a startup is a customer as far as the investor is concerned. And much like any other entrepreneur would not let go of a customer, if an investor feels yaar, isme kuch magic hai, there is something here that smells good, I want to look at it, investors will want to stay engaged as well. It is our business to pick up from among the various people that we meet, people that we feel have high potential. The specifics of that can be worked out later. But the one thing that entrepreneurs should seek from a networking event is an invitation for a follow-up meeting. That's the best outcome that you can get. There is nothing else that is more valuable than that.
I couldn't agree more, Prajakt. In my teachings, I mentioned this, that the success in networking comes from what you do after.
Correct.
Right? After you've met someone, after you've attended a conference, a lot of people are more focused on what's happening there. Right. And I completely resonate to what you've just said. I want to take this a little macro. Prajakt, how should these people, the founders, when I say these people, that's a controversial term these days, so I take that back. How should the founders, future entrepreneurs, etc., look at networking in general? Let's remove the context of TiECon for a moment, any event, any conference for a moment. Let's just look at holistically from the lifetime of a business. What should they be thinking about networking? So if I make my question more specific, how important should this be? How important this has been in your life, maybe that could be a great question for me to bring up, that the distance you have traveled, you've come to amazing places today, right? What role has networking played overall in helping you get here?
Yeah. See, networking is a means to an end, right? What is the end? The end is about uh, empowering yourself with perspectives of different people who are more experienced in a particular thing that you are not as experienced about. Networking is a means of getting across to them. Now, if I had 100 crores, I could hire all of those people to guide me. If I don't have 100 crores, the only thing that I can do is make friends with those people and then request them to have coffee or a meal with me and share their experiences. I see it as simple as that. And in my journey, and most of the other people who would have, sort of built successful businesses, you would have noticed that a lot of people have contributed to their understanding of the domain. And the starting point of those relationships is networking. Either 100 people who have all the right answers, or you start making friends with hundreds of other people who will perhaps know those answers. And events like TiECon, which is where entrepreneurs and investors and businesses come to interact with each other, are absolutely delightful places for networking. Everybody comes for networking. Much like an entrepreneur is coming there for networking, so is somebody from an industry, and so is an investor.
Right. So the theme that seems to be emerging out right now from the conversation, Prajakt, is this one thing is getting reiterated in different ways, which you mentioned in the beginning, that when you're going to these places, don't just think transaction. Right? There's so much more. You said that in the beginning itself, and now
don't you make it a immediate, because the immediate outcome is not going to be a contract or an investment or a commitment.
Right.
The best outcome is going to be when somebody agrees and likes what you're talking about and is interested in exploring further.
Okay, cool. One more question, Prajakt, in this context, maybe I'm using this as an excuse to validate my own teachings, right? So maybe there's a little bit of vested interest here, but I do want to get your perspective on this. When I'm talking to startups, right, and they're coming and asking, how do we go meet investors, etc., one thing that I recommend to them is that start networking with these people before you are ready to take an investment. Build a relationship, get their advice. Even that could be a 1-minute advice over a cup of coffee, right?
Right.
Make sure that you are in their ecosystem, you're having conversations, you're understanding how investors think. Because end of the day, even investors are human beings. A lot of people see them as checkbooks, unfortunately, right? But they're human beings, and the same principles of emotions and likability will apply on them too.
Absolutely.
Right? So is this something that you would also recommend, or would you agree, disagree to this? I'm not sure if I'm asking the right question.
I completely agree with you. At the end of the day, people do business when there is some history and some chemistry.
Yeah.
Now you have to, have to start building some history, and sometimes you may know people from earlier, and that's great starting point. And then you need to start really, sort of figuring out how to bring it all together into business context. And in some cases, you will need to start building the history, but immediately you will need to start figuring out how that chemistry works. Because at the end of the day, nobody wants to invest or write a check or do business with somebody that you don't like. And I'm not saying that you force yourself and each other to like each other, but if you see that there is no chemistry there, it's best not to really, sort of do a transaction, even though you may be involved.
Yeah. Prajakt, what I'm loving about this is that such gems are dropping in between. You're just dropping bombshells in between and you're casually moving on. So I want to come back to something. Guys, let's go back to a couple of seconds ago. Prajakt said business happens when there is history and chemistry, right? Prajakt, this as well. I hope this is not copyrighted, patented. I'm stealing it right away.
Okay. Not at all. Yeah.
But look at the depth of this, guys. Business happens when there is history, which means when people know you, they know that you exist in the ecosystem. If you're the kind of person who's approaching an investor, giving you a card, we call it splashing and dashing, right? That you go, you give your card, you're hoping something's going to happen. And if nothing happens, you never say hello to that person again, right? This is not how networking happens. Have history. If you're not looking for investment today, that is a great advantage. Start circling in the network of right people. Investors is just one of those. There's so many right people, mentors, advisors, right? and chemistry, Prajakt, what you said, right? And boy, what you said after that if there is no chemistry, don't push. That is going to require so much courage, Prajakt, because for a startup, for someone who's looking to get investment, that person saying, oh, I'm not feeling that energy here, so I'm not gonna push. This is going to be an alien concept for a lot of people, because we end up thinking, and I've been at that stage, so I'm relating to my old days, that it used to be, I want to talk to as many people as I can, throw as many seeds out, something's going to pop up, right?
Right.
Whereas that's not how it happens.
Right.
I love this history and chemistry. All right, cool. So Prajakt, two final questions. One is that if someone's approaching you at TiECon, right, what would be the way that you would love that someone approaches you? Half of the answer you've already given away in history and chemistry, right? But if a startup is watching this conversation right now and they want to come and say hello to you, they want to network with you, what's your one advice to them?
When people are coming to an event like a TiECon, where they're likely to meet a variety of people, there will be investors, there will be potential customers, there could be potential business partners, there could be potential co-founders, it could be potential employees. I think it's important for founders, before they come into an event like TiECon, to be prepared with what are the 3-4 aspects about my business that I want expert advice on. Now, it could be something that, I want to validate my concept. I want to validate my go-to-market strategy. I want to validate my pricing. I want to validate my investment approach. I want to validate my, fundraising needs. So depending on whom you're meeting, you should be able to therefore pick up that aspect on which this person is likely to be most valuable for. And in that, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes of interaction that you will have, if you're able to very quickly therefore summarize what you want to explain, and therefore be able to ask very specific questions that will be useful. Now, if somebody knows that I'm an investor and therefore approaching me, they should be very quickly tuned to saying, okay, for an investor, this is what my story is going to be. This is what I do. This is why it is important. This is the problem that I'm solving. This is how I'm doing it differently, or this is the reason why I think I have a good potential for doing it. Here's the reason why I feel so deeply about it, and here's why I'm qualified to do something like this.
Right.
And by the way, what I'm now looking for is investment on or for something like this. Do you think this is a good approach? Now, rather than saying, hey, would you write a check? If you were to ask me, look, do you think this is a good approach? Because if somebody asks me, will you invest? I can either say or no or maybe.
Yeah.
But if somebody says, do you think it's a nice approach? My most likely answer is, why don't we have coffee and discuss? And I'll give you my perspective.
Yeah.
At least it's and similarly, you might meet somebody else who's a business expert or a domain expert within, from the industry. Now, you don't pitch to them for investment, but you pitch to them saying, hey, you know what? I was thinking of targeting companies like these. What do you think? Is that the right target customer? I'm just giving that as an example.
Yeah.
Is that the right target customer? And who within the company should I be targeting? Who would be influenced? So be very clear in terms of what you're going to ask. And therefore, when you meet somebody at a networking event, very quickly establish, when you make the introductions, who that person is and what that person's role in the in business,
the ecosystem,
and therefore pull up in your mind very quickly that deck that you're sort of as a storyline that you're going to talk to this person about.
Right. So it comes down to preparing beforehand, right? Not just registering for any event and coming up with preparation. For a lot of people happens to be business cards ready or not. Right. But what I love, and this is a learning for me as well, that you've categorized, Prajakt, what kind of people I want to meet. And for each person, this is what I'm loving. For each person, this is my introduction.
Right.
But you've also said that in a conversation, establish who they are, what their role in the ecosystem is. So which means that first it's got to be about that person before it's about me. Right. Absolutely amazing. Right?
I'll give you an example. I'll illustrate with an example. If there is somebody that you meet who you think you may want to hire in your company, would you keep on talking to them about investments, or would you keep on talking to them about the kind of culture that you want to bring in your organization, and the scale of aspirations and the impact and the value that you're going to create, without pitching to him to join? And therefore create the circumstances for that person to say, hey, you know what you're doing seems interesting. I'd be interested in learning more.
Yeah. So you're saying this can actually be applied on investor as well, that have conversations, talk about the vision, talk about the problems.
Of course.
Give the investor the time to get interested in what you do, rather than just operating from that. Again, connecting it to the transaction concept, rather than just meeting an investor and hoping that the investor is going to come and say, hey, can I invest in you?
Right. And some people could be mentors, some people could be advisors, some people could be potential employees, some people could be potential co-founders, and some could be potential investors.
Right. Cool. And it's okay to just have conversations with investors, right? There's no need for people to be scared that, oh my God, it's an investor, I'm going to spoil my impression. I don't know what to talk about.
I mean, when you go to buy a TV in a shop, do you feel scared? No, you don't, because you're the customer. So similarly, you're the entrepreneur. Yeah. You've got a vision. You're telling the investor that here's the reason why I can give you an opportunity to create wealth along with me in my business. You're the customer. Right. The more you're not passionate, confident, with conviction, and with all the right plans that you have, the better the chances of somebody saying, okay, this looks interesting, I'd like to participate.
Lovely. So let me summarize this. Prajakt, you've given more time than we had asked for. Thank you so much. So I quickly want to summarize. Step number one, Prajakt said, don't go with the transactional mindset, right? Investors are there for much bigger purpose than to just invest. They're out there to build relationships. They're looking for themselves to network. They're looking to understand what people are doing, right? So if you're going with the mindset of only transaction, you could miss out on a lot of other kinds of values that investors, mentors, etc., could add in your life. So don't go with the transactional mindset. Number one. Number two, prepare. Right. I love this conversation that we just had. But sit down and ask yourself, what kind of people I want to meet, right? And what kind of role they play in the ecosystem. And when I meet them, what am I going to say to them? Prajakt clearly mentioned for each person, your pitch could be different. I remember, Prajakt, you did this. Pull out that deck, right? So you can only pull it out when it is ready. So take some time, prepare. And number three, have conversations, right? Just approach, have conversations, right? Go make sure that you are valuing people's time, but do talk to people. That's why these guys are coming there, to talk to you. Okay, cool. Prajakt, absolutely amazing. Loved this conversation. And I am really looking forward to networking with you at TiECon Delhi.
Wonderful. And likewise, I look forward to meeting, everyone at TiECon as well. And it is, I mean, people who will be seeing this video, there can't be a better forum than TiECon for people to engage with everybody in the startup ecosystem. It has to be a must-attend event on every entrepreneur's calendar.
I couldn't agree more. I have attended so many events and conferences, but when it comes to the entrepreneurship conversation, there's just something different about what happens here, the kind of people that become accessible, the kind of energy that flows through the rooms.
Absolutely.
At TiECon. It's a game changer. So I completely second. You're watching this, you got to be there. Prajakt, super awesome. Thank you so much. Love this conversation. And I look forward to seeing you at TiECon.
Right? Thank you. Likewise.